Thank you so much for coming today to this very special panel. We're here in conversation with the filmmakers and actors from Charm City Kings, a tremendous film, premiered last night, you guys. As we get assembled here.
Yeah!
My name is Jen Yamato. I'm a film reporter at the Los Angeles Times. And it's really such a delight and a treat and an honor to be able to talk about this film because there's so much to talk about, from the incredible real life community that inspired it to these characters that these three actors here in front of you bring to life. I'm going to introduce our special guests here one by one. We've got Kazai Curtis here.
Hello.
Jahi Winston. Danielle Hansley. And to my left, screenwriter Sherman Payne. Producer Caleb Pinkett. Producer Clarence. Oh, no, sorry. Clarence is on the far side.
Out of order.
Clarence Hammond. And right in the middle, we've got our director, Angel Manuel Soto.
Hola.
Well, I want to start by saying that this is one of the films that I was most excited to see. You put out a really fantastic trailer to give a taste of it. This film is actually coming out in a few months, so definitely keep that in mind. Spread the word. Check out the trailer so far if you haven't yet. But I want to sort of set up this story, and to that, I'm going to turn to the filmmakers. Somebody give us the premise of Charm City Kings.
Well, Charm City Kings is it's a coming-of-age story of three best friends, and in disenfranchised communities, more so in different than others, is that you can make a decision that at 13 that will change your life forever. You don't get a lot of second chances, especially when you're poor and disenfranchised. It's actually outside of ethnicity. Anybody that's poor doesn't get as many shots, but especially is true for young African-American kids and Latino kids, or I would say black and brown children. So this story is about a young boy who just wants the same thing all young boys want: to be cool, to have a girlfriend, and for people to think and people to respect him. And this leads him down a path that becomes very perilous, should I say, for his decision.
So, Jahi, you play our lead character who's nicknamed Mouse. Mouse is 14? 14 years old, kid from West Baltimore who longs to sort of become a bike rider. This is a film that is set within a real community in Baltimore where if you've seen the documentary 12 O'Clock Boys from 2012, I think?
Yeah.
That was a documentary that inspired this story. But Jahi, I wonder how would you describe Mouse? Tell us who Mouse is at the beginning of this film.
Mouse is the kid that you pass when you're on your way to work, when you're driving through that neighborhood, and not so good neighborhood that you really don't pay attention to. You know what I'm saying? He's sort of a product of his environment. He's a victim of his circumstances. He's a kid who's very strong-willed, and he's also a kid who's grieving and just trying to sort of cope in this very toxic community, and just doing the best with what he's been given. And he has a very fierce dream of riding dirt bikes along with his friends Lamont and Swear to God. Yeah.
And Danielle and Kazai, tell us a little bit about your characters.
Oh, okay. I'll go first. Swear to God is really.
Sorry, Dad.
Swear to God is really like the comic relief in this really heavy environment in Baltimore around his friends. He's the jokester. He's the one continuously being light-spirited and trying to bring the best out of every situation when he can.
Lamont is the hard-headed one. He is the one who just wants to be down with the clique, make money, you know what I'm saying, get his hair done, you know what I'm saying, be all flashy. But he's also the one that you can't just push around. You know what I'm saying? He don't take no from nobody. You know what I'm saying? And when you watch the movie, you can clearly see that.
Now, Clarence and Caleb, this is an Overbrook production. It's also a studio film.
Absolutely.
Tell us about the origins of the project and how then I want to hear from Sherman about the formulation of the story, and then Angel coming in to bring this beautiful vision to life with some of the bike scenes, you guys, are so beautiful. They're like gorgeous, thrilling stuff. So please take us through the progression of the birth of this project.
So I think in a lot of ways, the origins of the project come from an email exchange Caleb and I had forever ago, where we first fell in love with this world. And I remember us emailing, and the initial thing was, look, we love this idea of telling a story about a young boy whose circumstances are forcing him to feel like he has to be a man. You know, his mom is struggling to make ends meet. He lost his brother untimely and unfortunately, and he feels like he has to be the sole provider, despite the fact that he's only 13. And so for us, it was about how can we use that as a way in, because we knew the world had candy, it could be commercial, it could resonate, worldwide. But for us, it's about how can we have an independent, autorial feeling level of character detail, and then sprinkle in the candy. And hopefully we can be able to combine the two into something that feels really special and unique. And so for us, that was what we always held on to 8 years ago until now.
8 years.
Yeah, a long time, because what people don't understand with stories, especially the way that we develop, it takes a long time to what we call break a story. That means a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then the ending has to culminate in an idea, right? You only like movies that are about something. If something is only about, looking cool or being funny or whatever that is, audiences can enjoy it, but it doesn't stick with them. It doesn't resonate. And so I only like to tell stories that are about something. And the idea of this movie is people like us don't get second chances. So when you do, you take it and you do what's right. And it was something that I wanted to make sure was in this, and Clarence and I developing it for years and years came into that idea. So now our film finally worked all the way through with a beginning, middle, and end, with the culmination that I think the audiences are really enjoying, will respond to.
And so Sherman, tell us about coming onto this project and where you wanted to take this story.
Yeah, I came onto this project after there had been some previous drafts, and the first thing I really wanted to do is make it my own. I can't write anybody else's script except my own. So what I tried to focus on was really making the story as simple as possible. When I think of some of my favorite films, The Bicycle Thieves comes to mind, right? That's about a guy just trying to get his bike back. And I wanted to have that level of simplicity in this story. And this story, to me, at its heart, all the great ideas that Caleb talked about are there and present. But the dramatic core of this movie, to me, is Mouse just wants a bike so he can be down and he can live up to his brother. And so I wanted to make it as simple and as clean as possible. And then we were able to sort of use that skeleton to do all of the big themes that we wanted to do about masculinity, disenfranchisement. There's definitely conversations to be had with this movie about the justice system and imprisonment and the probation system. So that was my goal.
Angel, you came onto this. You read this and you're like, yes. This is obviously not your first film, but it is a big film for you. And I wonder if you can speak to what telling this story has meant to you.
Well, apart from these two guys changing my life, I feel like this movie definitely changed my life. Mainly because I was always trying to find a way to tell the story of Puerto Rico to an audience that doesn't care about Puerto Rico. And I saw a lot of Puerto Rico in Baltimore. We've been saying for a while now that there's a Baltimore in every state, and Puerto Rico is its own little Baltimore in the middle of the Caribbean, and we are very much alike in the sense that we are a huge abandoned place, and that has the potential to be great, but is not being led to be great. And I found in this story a way to tell my struggle, my personal experiences as well, with a script that's very powerful, that does justice to disenfranchised youth and marginalized communities in a way that doesn't exploit them, but celebrates their humanity.
And great opportunity to tell us about your hat.
Oh, my hat.
Representing here in
Yeah.
Sundance.
Yeah, I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico, but my hood is Santurce. Where I'm from, Santurce is exactly like Baltimore. So, props to Baltimore and Santurce.
Let's talk about the Baltimore of this all. You know, this is a film that really immerses you in a beautiful way in this very rich, textured, complex environment. This place that obviously is a real place, and you want to obviously do justice to the real people of Baltimore, of this community. How did you all tap into that? How did you prepare for that kind of responsibility of knowing that this is a Baltimore story?
Well, for me, I mean, my whole family is from Baltimore. Like there's a the Pinkett family is so ingrained in Maryland. I was even when my father was alive, he took me to visit the plantation where we were kept. There was a French family that owned 100 slaves, and we were there. Our last name is French. It's actually Pinkett. And it's funny, when my sister Jada got famous, some people from France were calling saying, "You're our cousin." And we were like, ah. But the idea being, it was extremely important for me to deliver this story and be honest to the city. What I didn't want to do is be patronizing. I didn't want to be preachy. I didn't want to be like, make it political. Oh my God, look how we're suffering. Let me tell you something. People in the ghettos and the people that you would see on TV and like, oh my God, it's so bad for them. When you poor, you actually don't even really know it, because everybody around you is the same. Yeah. And so you learn to enjoy life. That's why the movie is full of so much comedy and so much, camaraderie between these boys. Yes, they understand their struggle. Yes, they want to come up. Yes, they want a bike. They want these things. But it's not, oh, woe is me, I'm poor. Like, they don't live that way. And what I didn't want to do with this is, like, make it seem like it was some, like, oh, my God, please help us or any of that. Mm-hmm. Look at this boy. I wanted to have the story tell about a young man who's coming up, and he's going to make a decision that could change his life forever based off of economics. Now, his mother doesn't have money for bills. She can't afford this, but she's a single mother, raised 3 kids on her own, and is working and trying to go to school. So when that happens, you can't be at home to raise your children. So their kids are left to raise themselves, and that's when the stuff starts to happen. So I really wanted that to be in there, but the responsibility was heavy on me, because I'm essentially representing the city of Baltimore. Clarence is from PG County in Maryland, so it's close. So it was a major thing for us to make sure that we represented the city correctly and made the people feel like they were represented right and feel good and give an inspiring piece of hope, because that's the one thing that happens in these places. Once you lose hope, it's tragic. So this movie, we really hope will bring some hope back to the city.
And I think to never demonize dirt bike riding. That was something that we were really adamant about throughout development and production. Was about, if we want to tell a cautionary tale, we want to have a story that might have a bit of tragedy in it, but how can we do that in a way that doesn't tell everybody dirt bike riding is bad? Because it isn't. For a lot of people, it's the only freedom they have. It's illegal in Baltimore, and it's sad because for so many people who ride, for them it symbolizes joy, freedom, invincibility, and the very thing that makes you feel invincible can also take away your freedom. And so for us, it was about how can we tell an honest, authentic story, but never paint the picture that the dirt bikes are the reason anything negative happens.
Well, and to that point, in terms of how dirt bike riders are policed in that particular city, it's sort of ironic that the most free somebody can be is while they're on their bike because of maybe you can.
Well, there's a no chase policy in Baltimore. So what that means is when you ride your bike, the police can't chase you. Now, as soon as you're off that bike, you got a problem. Any other time, they can rough you up, come right to your neighborhood, and these are places where it doesn't matter. They do these things and harass these young black kids every single day. Me spending so much time in Baltimore growing up, I know exactly what that is. But the time they cannot be chased, the only time in their life where the police has to leave them alone is when they're on a dirt bike. I don't know if any of you guys can imagine what that must feel like, but it's a feeling of exhilaration and freedom for a short amount of time that you just want to get. It's almost drug-like. Yeah. So that's something that is very important to these writers, that they want you to know they're not all criminals. It's just an escape. to be free in a concrete jungle where their basketball courts don't have goals on them, where the benches are broke, where the water fountains don't work, that type of stuff.
Where the street says no ball playing.
Oh God, that's so true. We were shooting on a block, and it said no. There was a sign that said no ball playing. Imagine if you're 6, and that's what you see. You know.
And you have a shot in the beginning, establishing that, like,
Yeah.
working your way through this neighborhood. I didn't know that was.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Exactly. That's the point. You don't know this kind of things happen.
It wasn't us trying to make a statement. That's
It's
there.
there.
Now, Kazai, Jahi, Danielle, I'd love to hear about, like, in your preparation for these characters, how did you, like, research this world that your characters live in? How did you find that you connected to who they are?
Well, my mom is from Southeast DC, and that's a completely different thing. I don't want backlash from the DMV comparing Baltimore to DC, but they have their similarities. And you know, Mouse was really for me based off a lot of my cousins, you know, and you know those kids that you really root for, you know, that just, you know, they just need to be guided and nurtured. But they're very big-headed, you know what I'm saying, and hard-headed, and I just really tried to sort of show the humanity in him and not play him as a stereotype, and also the accent, just sort of talking to Baltimore people, really listening to the interviews of Baltimore people. There was a social media influencer by the name of Jess Hilarious. I watched a lot of her videos, and just sort of immersing myself into the culture was really helpful for me in my preparation for the character.
Okay, I'll go. For me, it was like he said. It was just getting used to like the environment. Like me and my dad, the first week we were out there, we went to like a clothing store, and we were just talking to people so I could get the accent down, so I could get their like vernacular down, just so I could get all these tiny details. And when it came to like swear to God as a character, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have to do much. It was just. It was just figuring out how to bring my comedic timing, you know, just me being a comedian and bring that into a Baltimore setting. That was pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we all started with trying to get the accent down. And then after we did all that, you know, I watched movies, I did my research, like Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, things like that. And then what I thought about Lamont, I was like, I really got to bring this hard-headed side out of me because they know how I am. I'm super goofy. I always playing, you know what I'm saying, making everyone laugh. That's just me. But Mont is completely different. You know what I'm saying? Mont comes from a different world. So Mont is, he tries to really get it how he live it. You know what I'm saying? They don't have a lot. So I just pretty much tried the best I could.
Now, when we're talking about the cast, this is a fantastic ensemble for starters. And you also have Meek Mill in his acting debut, playing a character who is one of Mouse's potential mentor figures. And Tiana Paris plays Mouse's mom. She's fantastic too. And in addition to that, you have actual Baltimore bike riders, kind of like some of the stars of the dirt bike scene, Chino and Queen, playing these characters and really filling in this ensemble. They're fantastic too. So, Angel, tell us about casting this. How did you even find everybody? What did you know you needed to have in whoever it was, no matter their experience level?
So as far as, let's start with the 3 kids here. We went through a really extensive search to find Mouse, especially. Because the character of Mouse really needed to convey all the emotions possible. And his eyes and smile needed to show a certain empathic feel that could translate to the world without it being distracting or anything like that. And that's where Yahi stepped up to the plate. He never read the script. He confessed that the other day.
I regret saying that now. I'm never going to live that down.
Yeah.
Caleb's like, well, I know now that he never read the script.
But, you know, he went there and he killed it. And the same day, I mean, the first one that we chose was Swear to God. because I came in, and from the get-go, we were like, yeah, you're it. Really easy.
Oh.
Really easy. That card that was written for you. And then when we did the chemistry trade, that's when Diddy came in. It was supernatural. We were there and we were blown away by how these kids related to each other as if they grew up together. And now look at them; they're always making jokes, and they were always joking and said like they've been friends forever. So that chemistry was really honest. I mean, you can tell when something is not working, but them, it was impossible to fuck that up.
Well, and so much of
Oh, I can cuss.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
We're live.
I'll do it too and make it even. Just
Okay,
kidding.
cool.
Just kidding.
I'm sorry about that. But as
I-
far as Tiana and Will, Tiana is a master of her craft, and so is Will.
William Catlett, who plays Detective Rivers.
Will Catlett, Tiana Perez, and they killed it on their casting, and they did phenomenal. Also carrying the weight of the film, and when it came to the other ones like Meek, Chino, and Queen, I'll let Caleb talk about that.
Well, they were already casted, so Angel didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice.
This is what it is. Because one thing, the dirt bike riders, you need authenticity. If you try to represent somebody's world and it's inauthentic, they immediately check out, and that's what you can't do. And Chino is known arguably as the best street dirt bike rider in the world. Like, he's considered that. He was riding them since he was 5 years old. And then Willie Queen, my sister, Jada sent me a Instagram video of her riding, and she was like, I don't care. She's in the movie. Figure it out. I was like, yep, done deal. So I had Willie Queen. And Meek, I had promised him the role before all of his legal issues. And what happened was he ends up going to jail while the movie started to go. And Clarence hired an actor for the role, him and Angel. They were like, yes, this is our guy. He's going to be so great. And Meek gets out of jail. And I said, well, tragedy. Guess what? Meek is back in. So and it worked out. It really worked out. It was, what Meek brought to this movie. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's the same thing Ice Cube brought to Boys in the Hood in 1991. At the time, if you don't know, Ice Cube was the biggest gangster rapper in America. And he was from LA. So for him to play a gangster in an LA themed movie, it's perfect. And Meek represents the bike world the similar way that Ice Cube represented the streets of LA. So Meek being in it gives it an authenticity. And then Chino next to him with Willie Queen, stop. And there's a guy named Willie Wayne, shout out to him, who is the godfather of it all. He made sure we had all the best riders in Baltimore there on the set every single day, which was amazing for us. So it was a in tandem work. Sometimes my guys were not pleased with me, but hey, that's what it is.
I mean, it worked out. Definitely, it worked out. I told him, you're a genius for doing that, because it was really genius. And who would have thought that, after all that promising Meek that role, and Meek then going to jail and coming out of jail and working hard on their prison reform movement and all that stuff, it's not that far from blacks.
Absolutely.
So like nobody could play blacks better than him, because it is him. Like, you don't have to act blacks. He just is blacks.
And it's such a compelling performance to see from him too. What was that like for you to work with Meek in so many of those really difficult, emotionally difficult scenes as your character's relationship really evolves and
I was
changes?
hoping you'd ask me that question, because he gave me so much to go off of. He gave me so much to play off of. And so it was funny, because sometimes he would act like I would be in those emotional scenes. He would ask me, he'd be like, how you cry like that? He was like, how you do that? He was like, it's a secret. I was like, I don't really have an answer for that. But he gave me so much to go off of. And like Angel said, there was no one better that could play it. You know what I'm saying? And him living it and him being immersed into the culture really helped me respect the culture a lot more. You know what I'm saying? And I tried my best, and really it was humbling for me, because he was almost like a student. Like, he would ask questions. It was like, I was like, I don't know, bro. I just show up, put me on my mark. Like, I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I mean, it was so great. Like, he just gave me so much to play off of. I did not have to do a lot of work at all. Like, we were in it together. He was super dope.
I want to ask everybody, before we turn to the audience for questions, by the way, so if you have a question, we're going to turn to that soon, so get your hand up and be ready. But I want to ask everybody, what was it like stepping on to set on days when you had this, and I really cannot overstate this, gorgeous symphony of bike action, tremendous artistry of the bike stunts and their performers, including Chino, who does some of his signature moves in the film. But what was it like stepping onto set on those days?
For me, it was amazing because I have never done something that big. So it was definitely a challenge. And I remember the first time I went to a Sunday ride and how exhilarating it is. It's like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And it just happens on the block. It could happen anytime. And I wanted to communicate that same experience on that first scene when Mouse walks into the ride. And being there and seeing it play out, it almost played out as if from memory. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, people are, sorry.
It's okay.
They'd be like, wow. People, I'd be like, wow, people are really gonna experience this in such an immersive way, the same way that I saw it. So it was, I still feel like, I still hear it, I still smell it. It's like, it's very, very contagious.
I was terrified because
You
I'm
and me
in
both.
Baltimore.
Well, you're the producer.
Well, I'm in Baltimore, in our family city. I have 300 Baltimoreans there, and anything can happen at any point in time. And there's insurance issues, and I have my actors refusing to not do their own stunts. Chino and Queen was like, I'll walk off the set if you bring any stunt guy near me. Like, I'm doing it all. And Sony was like, you can't do that. I was like, close my eyes. I didn't see nothing. You know what I mean? And but because I was like, the word that you're gonna fall. Chino said, fall. It was like, oh, it was amazing. But, walking on set, it was definitely a nerve-wracking thing for me because I was like, please, God, don't let nobody fall. Don't let nothing happen. They're going to shut us down. And nothing happened. By the grace of God, everything went the way exactly it was supposed to be. And it worked out fine. But I couldn't have been more terrified and excited at the same time.
Chino would come to me and he'll be like, Angel, they won't let me do any stunts. I'm like, let's do 2 takes without stunts. And then we're going to say, okay, let's do the last one, and you can do anything you want. And he did. And
Like, oh my God, I didn't tell him to do that. What is he doing? He's crazy.
Oh, Chino, I've been telling you, stop it, Chino, stop it.
Stunts, by the way, without helmets. And often, I don't know if how many
Shout
of
to
you guys...
Kevin Rogers, our stunt coordinator.
Excellent.
King.
Kevin.
I don't know if anyone in this room has attended something like the ride, which is depicted in the film, or seen any of the many amazing videos on YouTube that really are one way of opening a window into that world to anybody outside of Baltimore. But I highly recommend. Do we have any questions from the audience that we're going to turn to right now? Oh, yes, we have a microphone coming to you. Thank you. And feel free to stand up so everyone can see you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful conversation so far. I'm curious about your collaboration, Angel, with the cinematographer to frame, the close-up scenes, but also these high-action impact scenes.
So there's going to be 2 parts for that. Kate Arismendi and I, we definitely worked on the look of the film, on how the visual language is going to play out. I'm used to shooting long takes, out of necessity mainly, because in Puerto Rico you don't have many resources and time. But here I felt like the energy of it, I wanted it almost to feel like real time. Even though there's cutting, but you see like everything moves around, and it just gives you this feeling of being there with them. I wanted to create intimacy, but also be able to have spatial awareness of Baltimore. Like for me, that was very key. I think like geography is very important, and being able to live in a space. Like I do virtual reality as well. So for me, having those perceptions of immersion are key when translating it to a flat screen. So the camera moves around and you're looking through their eyes, and it's almost as if you're there with them. So the only thing I need is smell. Like if we get the smell, we're there. So I really wanted to cater to that vision, and I didn't want to do something like hyper realistic, or like there's no backlight here. I don't need a backlight all the time. So I really wanted to keep it that way, and Kate definitely took my ideas and she took it to another level. And she was very inspired by Baltimore. She didn't want to mimic, London weather or something like that. No, we're doing a Baltimore film. Sometimes there's sunlight and it's harsh. Sometimes it's overcast. Sometimes it snows, it's warm. It's all of the above. And I felt like Kate did a wonderful job in doing that. Now, when it comes to the action sequences, we had Shelley Johnson with us, who is an amazing cinematographer. He did Captain America, and he was there for the reshoots that we had to do. And he was
Additional photography.
Yeah, we didn't do reshoots. Yes, sorry. For additional photography, we had Shelley Johnson, who is a master in action storytelling, and he was able also to keep the language of Kate intact while doing this. So it was my first action sequence like that. It looked like it took 4 days, but we did it in 12 hours. Right. And it couldn't have been done without Kevin Rogers, our stunt coordinator, and Shelley Johnson, and the whole production team in general. But yeah, they killed it.
Oh, question right in the front.
So this is a comment, but also a question. So I live in Seattle, and we have something called Bike Works. I don't know if Baltimore has that, but my question is, can you collaborate, or have you, with any of the non-profit foundations that have been set up to bring bikes to the impoverished or the disenfranchised? And what I mean by that is like Bike Works in Seattle. What we do is we raise money, but also collect bikes that then the kids learn how to work on the bikes, and they get a bike, and it gives them the means to have transportation for a job. It gives them respect, and also they learn a lot in the process of learning about bikes. That's my question.
Yeah, well, Willie Wayne in Baltimore, to his credit, is absolutely trying to make that happen. They do have a place where they teach kids, where you learn about bikes in Baltimore. I think it's the Baltimore County Detention Center. I think that's where they get most of their information. That's where you learn about all but
that's privately owned, though.
Absolutely. We don't have they in Baltimore, because it's still a debate, because the writing is so dangerous. They haven't fully embraced it yet. So it will take a foundation like yours in Seattle, like reaching out to the city and saying, hey, let's try to do these things, because I agree with you. Teaching kids how to build the bikes, fix them. They learn engineering, mathematics, science, all of these things at doing something that they love to do, which is the best way to learn. So it's not happening, but I would hope they would.
And thank you for doing that, because I do think that's necessary. I wish I had something like that in mind. So.
Do we have a question over here?
Yes. You had said that Sony was a little worried about some of the stunt situations. How did you guys get in contact with Sony, and at what point during production
they
did
were
you
there.
start that relationship?
Oh yeah, Sony was there. Our insurance guy that repped Sony, my man Javi, shout out Javi. He was there every day. He was like, Caleb, what is going on? I was like, nothing. I didn't tell him to do that. Oh my God, Chino, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So they were there because it was just nerve-wracking, because they were like, you don't do kids with no helmets, So, but that's how they ride in Baltimore.
I still don't understand that.
Yeah. So to answer your question, they were there.
I have a question for Sherman, actually, especially given how long you lived with this story and really formulating the story and these characters. The film actually, without spoiling anything, because you definitely should watch it, April 10th
is the limited.
in theaters.
April 17th is the national.
But there's so much that this film is speaking about. There's so many themes running throughout it, throughout Mouse's journey, throughout all of these characters' journeys. that speak to, as you said, toxic masculinity, the lack of opportunities, even race relations in an inner city environment like this. You have characters who run a local liquor store who are Korean immigrants. What were some of the sort of ideas and really the concerns of yours as a writer that you have in the world that you wanted to filter into this story?
Well, I mean, I'll say again that I think the first thing is to tell a good story. I think that nobody wants to hear a message without a narrative that they can hold on to. It's sort of like what Caleb was saying, like there's got to be an idea. People have to have something to hold on to. So that was the first thing. And then I think when you really start telling the stories of young black men and young black men in the neighborhood where this takes place, that stuff comes with them, right? Like you can't tell a story about young black men on a lazy summer walking the streets of Baltimore without having some contact with the police. You just can't tell that story. You start to talk about father figures and men in that community. Well, if you look at the statistics, those men do have oftentimes criminal records and are arrested at higher rates. So when I started to tell the story and be true to these characters, those themes came with it. And those are all things that I think everybody here is concerned with. When we have conversations with each other, we're concerned with all that stuff too. So, I started with the story, I started with the character, and those themes, really, we found those themes as we told the best story possible.
We have another question right here.
Yeah, you mentioned at the outset that this movie.
Oh, hold on. Do we have a microphone? Sorry. Thank you.
You mentioned at the outset that this movie was a long time in the making, from the concept to premiering last night. How and when did Sony come on the scene?
They came on a little bit later, where once we acquired the project and were developing it internally, and that just means inside our company. And once we got it to a certain point and we were able to get there, I saw a lot of interest were coming from different places that wanted to participate or help us make this film. And Sony stepped up, because my company, Overbrook, where I work at, they had a first look deal with Sony for like 15 years. And then after that dissolved, we still had a good relationship. So, it happened to work out that way.
And I think we really leapt at the chance once we heard Sony Classics was interested, because for us, we have such respect for them as a brand. And I think that blue logo in front of your film, on the poster, on the trailers, means so much, and it really signifies prestige. And for us, it was a testament to, I think, that dance we tried to do of a prestigious film, independent roots, certain commercial elements. And so when we knew they were excited and interested, we jumped out of our seats.
Yeah, it was like a dream come true. I remember growing up, I would go and look for movies that said Sony Picture Classics in the back. And that was my school for a while. I mean, for most of the part, that was my school, watching Sony Picture Classic movies over and over. So now being part of it is effing awesome.
Good job, man.
I'm a fast learner.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I think there's one more thing that Caleb, you wanted to bring up, right?
Yeah, today is my brother's birthday.
Hey.
So I want to make sure that Angel knows how much we love him and appreciate him. And ladies and gentlemen, please begin.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Angel. Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish. Make a wish.
Sundance has made me cry twice already. Jesus. Gracias.
Well, thank you all so much. Once
you,
again, a
guys.
round of applause for our Charm City Kings crew, our actors.